Hi everyone, my name is Tamara Russell and I'm the facilitator of the blog Mrs. Russell's Room. And today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about my brand new unit for third grade writers called Writing 101. It's a collection of materials to help you support your students while they are learning how to do narrative writing structures. And so I wanted to go through the pack and kind of give you guys a preview of what you would be seeing in the unit so that you can know if it's something that would work for your construct in your classroom. So what we have is basically, if I make this smaller so that you can see, there's 88 pages in the unit. There's a variety of pages in the unit that are editable, and you can see that I've notated those for you where they're editable. We'll get to that at the very end. Right, so we're going to start off here at the very top with what I call the writing objectives. And the writing objectives are just the standards broken down over a specific amount of time, and then you're going to build to a finished product. So you can see here for our first unit, we are working solely on the standards for narrative in third grade, and then we are going to build to a narrative piece. So all of the lessons in this particular unit have to do with building to this one narrative piece. The next thing in my class that I will be teaching is building towards the informative piece. So I have that for you all the way through the end of the year. That's all my planning for the end of the year. Now, I like to teach with mentor text. Now, mentor text for me can be for published books, or it can be text that I write for my students and I have them analyzed. So for the purposes of my unit, it could be either or, and you can do either or with your students. My preference is to use books with my students that are published, but for the purposes of writing and reflecting about the things that we've read, sometimes it's easier for the students if they see me write something and then we grade that and we talk about whether or not that meets the content of the rubric that we're using. So I have a couple of books for you here that I'm going to be using in my narrative lessons over the course of 4 weeks that I'll have available to my students so that they can read them personally. You'll see that there's anything from second grade, mid-second grade to high fourth grade material because we want to expose our children to a variety of texts and a variety of complexity. So that's why there's these particular texts here. All right, so then we go into the lesson plan section, and the lesson plans are weekly plans. Now you can see in my weekly plan that I only have 4 days of instruction. Okay, so each day we are going over a specific thing. So there's always going to be an overarching goal. For example, in my week 1 plans, it says students will write a narrative to develop real or imagined experiences or events using effective techniques, descriptive details, and clear event sequences. There's always a lesson goal to go with whatever I'm teaching for the day. And then on the 5th day, you can do a quick write with your students and follow up with the rubric that I've given to you. And we're going to get into talking about the rubrics in just a second. So for this unit, there are 4 weeks of plans. Now, these are all the suggested things that I have for you. But if you want to do your own plans, then you can go to the editable version, okay? So what you would want to do is just take off this text box like this, and then you can start to type in here whatever it is that you would need to be typing. So you can change things up if you'd like. I'm just going to undo like that. And for up here, then you would just put in whatever the week's plan is. So let's say this is week 10, so then you would put in week 10. Make sense? All right, so that's for you guys there. Now I'm going to go into progressive rubrics. If you guys watched me talk about writing on my Facebook Live a couple of days ago, you would have heard me talking about progressive rubrics. I'm really passionate about how I do my grading for writing because I feel like the standards are for mastery, which means that when you ask the students to write something for you at the beginning of the year, there should not be an expectation that the fullness of the standard be met in September, let's say, with an apple writing or a dinosaur writing or something like that. They should be able to have the entirety of the year to get to that fullness of the standard. But how do you grade them in the interim? You use something called a progressive rubric. You take a portion of the standard and you teach that and you assess that. And so that's what I've done here. You have a baseline narrative writing rubric where you can see that I've left you the standards here across the top. And then in my class, what I do is I put the fullness of the standard that I'm covering for that week in the level 3. And then if they exceed the level 3, then they can get a level 4. If they miss a few things in level 3, then they would get a 2. If they miss 2 things, and they get a level 1. And then if they miss a lot, they would get a level 0. So what for the baseline narrative writing rubric, this has more of the fullness of the standard in it, because at the end of this 4 weeks, I'm going to be done teaching narrative writing formally. I'm going to get into some other things. So for the purposes of narrative, at the end of 4 weeks, I do expect them to have mastery of this particular standard. So that's why you see the fullness of the standard here. I also have some rules at the bottom. So if the student's not independent, then, if I have to give them too much support, then I would take points. If they're not self-monitoring and checking, like they're repeating lines and stuff like that, or the writing doesn't make sense, then I'd take off points for that. So you have a couple different options for your narrative writing rubric. You have one with a number and a percentage, which is what I use in my class. You have one with just the number. Then you have these that just have a circle so that you can choose to put whatever you'd like to put there. You'd have to handwrite that in because these are not editable. But then I do give you this version, which is editable. So the baseline narrative writing rubric has the fullness of the standard, and then you can type in other things. And if you're not using a leveling system, there's no language in here that would indicate level 5 or 4 or 2 or 1 or whatever. You make your own choices here. Then we go into the next week, and you can see that the progressive rubric for the first week of instruction is here. Notice how this is slightly shorter and it's a little different. The students are required to do much less, okay? So you can compare and see if they're growing from the baseline to the culmination. Again, you have 3 different types of rubric here. And then I give you the editable version if you'd like to use that. We go into week 2's rubrics and an editable version, week 3's rubrics and an editable version, weeks 4 rubrics with an editable version, and then you have the finished product rubric. Now, at any time, if you want to not use a rubric, that's okay, or you want to bundle something, that's okay. That's up to you. If you only want to use the finished product rubric, that's all of that is completely up to you. I like to teach writing every day for about 20 to 25 minutes. So there is time for me to write with my students weekly, and I'm comfortable with that. But this is your pack, so you do what you feel like is best for your learners. I do have some printables and a couple of prompt ideas. And because the pack is editable, you can just take these prompt ideas and type them into some of the printables that I have for students to respond with paper and pencil. So if you want to use these, you can, that's fine. Or if you wanted to write your own, that's fine too. After the prompt ideas, we have the baseline prompt where they can do the graphic. This first page is the graphic organizer. Then they go into writing, and this is editable for you. So you can type up your own prompt here, or you can use the one that use something that I suggested, totally up to you. That's a second page for them. Week 1, I have a brainstorming sheet for you to use, and you can check the numbers at the top corner because that'll tell you what particular week I felt like I wanted this to go with. Of course, again, it's your choice if you wanted to use it for other things, but these are specifically crafted week to week. So you can see there's brainstorming sheets, 3 for week 1, a couple for week 2, a couple for week 3, couple for week 4, and there's only 4 weeks here. And I have some drafting sheets for you to use, just one for each week. And then you can have them publish something for you. Again, you can type the prompt up here, or you can one that you made up or something that I made up, either way. And then there's a secondary piece if they have, if they have extra that they want to write beyond the first. All right, so one of the things I like to do after my students have drafted is have them to peer edit. And so we just use a sheet like this that has a couple of the bulleted points that they were supposed to cover from the final rubric. So for week 1, here are some of the goals of the week 1 rubric, and I have them in here. You would cut this out, and then you would attach it to the draft page and let students peer edit that way. I have one for week 2, week 3, week 4, and then of course an editable version where you can take this box off and then type in your own objectives. I do have some sample texts for you. These are texts that I wrote, quick passages that students can use as a model or reflective tool for grading. And it's really important that you give students these kinds of things to look at so that they can self-evaluate and see if they are coming close to the goals that you've set for them. So I have a couple of texts. I tried to make the prompts slightly different, but tangential to what I had given in the pack. So these are not the exact prompts that I wrote. These are slightly different, but it's in the same vicinity. So you can see you have a couple different ones here, and it's numbered at the bottom, so you can see how many different ones. We have 4 in this pack. And you can use them week to week to have students grade. And it's always fun to see what the students think about that. Now, if you want to write your own sample text, I give you a sheet and you can type it up in here. Just take off the box at the top and start typing by the X. All right, another thing, the last thing I have for you is some teaching support anchor charts that you can use. You can print and put them on your board when you're teaching your students. One of the things that I feel like increases the rigor in my students' work is sentence structure. And so I have some sentence pattern sheets for you so that you can see some of the types of sentence structure that will be present in writing. For third graders, I would think that they should be within that level 2 band, but certainly diving more into the complex sentence structure. Certainly, simple sentences are still acceptable in third grade, but it shouldn't be the majority of what your students are writing. They should have a variety of sentence structures that they're using in order for them to earn a level 3, at least in my class. The more complex sentence structures that they use, that would get them closer to a level 4, at least for the sentence writing aspect of things. Transitional words and phrases are important in a narrative pack, and so I have a couple transitional words and phrases for students to use as a reference point. And then because we are talking about dialogue in our narrative work, I have some rules for using quotation marks for you as well. Okay, just a couple rules for the students. And if you wanted to edit any of the pack, I use KG fonts for all of my units. And so for the lesson plan template page, you would be using KG neatly printed. For the published piece page, what I did on my examples was KG neatly printed for the prompt that goes up here. And then for the typing part of it, it was a teeny tiny font, KG a teeny tiny font. And again, here with the peer editing, that would be KG a teeny tiny font for the words in here. And then over here, this would be Miss Kindergarten, KG Miss Kindergarten appear and appear. All right, well, that's everything that's in this pack. 88 pages of love went into it. So I hope if you have any questions, you'll feel free to email me. Contact me definitely through my blog, which is tamaravrussell.com. And I would love to answer any questions that you have about writing. This pack can be found on Teachers Pay Teachers in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. And if you'd like to purchase it there, I would be more than happy to have you do that. Thank you so much and have a great day.